How's it going, guys? So today I wanted to try something kind of similar to what I've been doing in the last two videos, in the sense that I am once again talking about the Monsterverse. With the release of Godzilla vs. Kong this year, I was sort of disappointed. Like, I still really enjoyed the film and whatnot, me being a big Godzilla fan. But at the end of the day, I would argue that it's by far the weakest out of all the Monsterverse films. And I thought to myself, like, yeah, these films are not exactly perfect, but it's still probably the cinematic universe that I most care about. So I decided that I'm gonna make a series where I go through each one of the Monsterverse films and break it down into three parts. So, plot summary, mini review, and some changes that I would do to lead to what I would consider a better version of the Monsterverse. Of course, I'm not a professional writer or any of that stuff, so that I'm not going to be claiming to rewrite everything. This is just changing events here and there that I believe would help fix the Monsterverse, because it does have some issues that every Monsterverse film suffers from. For example, tonal differences, with every film feeling tonally really different from the last. So today's movie is Godzilla 2014, directed by Garrett Edwards, and yeah, let's just get right into it. So Godzilla 2014 follows the story of Fort Brody as he tries to reunite with his family while giant monsters pop out of nowhere and start screwing things over. I guess that's funny enough. I guess that's the entire summary for the story. I guess this one's a short one. And I guess we're gonna jump right into the review then. I don't think having a short summary like that for a film is really a bad thing. At the end of the day, simplicity can sometimes be more than a super complex story. For example, like Mad Max Fury Road, like the plot could basically be summoned to some people get chased somewhere, they try to get somewhere, they decide to go back to where they came from. So yeah, that's not really an issue. So with that being said, we are heading full spoilers ahead into this thing, which if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should probably watch it. It did come out in 2014, so that's your spoiler warning. So one of the biggest complaints that a lot of people have is with Bryan Cranston's character, Joe Brody, who ends up being underused almost criminally in this film, with him dying in the first act, and it ends up feeling like he's only there to, sell the name of Bryan Cranston, when in reality the character doesn't really contribute much to the plot. He does figure out the whole thing with the mutants using echolocation to communicate, but that could have easily been given to Dr. Ishido Serizawa, which is Ken Watanabe's character, to figure out, since he is the scientist that's trying to study these creatures. Another of the complaints that a lot of people have is with Godzilla and how he only appears for about 15 minutes or so, which isn't really a complaint that I have, because personally I don't think Godzilla has to be in there throughout the whole movie, and some of my favorite Godzilla movies just straight up have him for hardly any time. For example, the original Godzilla movie, or Shin Godzilla, which is the Japanese Godzilla film, the live-action Japanese Godzilla film that came out soon after 2014, which I will not be covering in this series because that's not part of the Monsterverse. But I feel that one of the complaints that are valid when it comes to Godzilla's screen time is how the film has a tendency to put the action right in front of the viewer, just to cut it out of nowhere. For example, the airport scene, which is probably one of the greatest introductions for any character ever, where Godzilla comes out of the water, you see the tsunami come in and all that stuff, and then you finally see a airplane blowing up, which starts a chain reaction, which blows up another airplane, which blows up another airplane, and then just you see a giant foot just stump in complete silence, then camera panning up, seeing Godzilla roar and cut. The problem with that is that you have all this build-up leading up to the fight with Godzilla and the first Muto, which at this point we didn't know that there was two of them, just for the movie to decide to cut to news footage and Ford's kid just watching the news and talking about how there's dinosaurs in the news. So that leaves the audience feeling, for lack of a better term, cock blocked. And then obviously there's the other third big complaint is about how the human characters just feel a little bit underused or like a bit boring or whatnot. I personally like the human characters for the most part, not counting generic sin. But yeah, I guess that's the tiny review. If I were to give it a rating, I would give it about an 8 out of 10. So let's talk about what to change in the film. Or first of all, let's talk about what not to change in the film. So one thing that the Monsterverse has been really strong about since Godzilla 2014 has been visuals, and just having these incredible visuals. For instance, 2014 has a Halo jump scene. King of the Monsters has, well, any scene with the monsters in it. Even Godzilla vs. Kong, like a lot of the action scenes are just extremely well directed and just visually breathtaking. And the same could be said about Kong Skull Island, but we'll get more into that later because I do believe that visually it might be the weakest one in my opinion. So visuals, designs, any of that stuff I'm not gonna touch on, and as far as for my version of the Monsterverse goes, everything stays the same. Same thing goes with the soundtrack, especially with the stellar soundtrack that, at least for this film, with the stellar soundtrack that Godzilla 2014 gave us. But what these videos are more about, it's kind of like the story details, the story beats, and the plot lines, and what could be changed to possibly make the Monsterverse a little bit better. So first of all, killing off Bryan Cranston's character was a massive mistake. I think what I would personally do with the character is have him be sort of direct counter to Ishido Serizawa's character, where he believes that these monsters are these creatures are dangerous. Where he believes that these creatures are dangerous and need to be eradicated, while Serizawa believes that we should study them. And I would keep him alive through the rest of the film, and that would give Ford another reason to stay with the military and so on, because his dad is working for them now. So he's just kind of like, hey, I gotta get to my family, but also I gotta make sure that my dad doesn't get himself killed or whatnot. So that would give him a little bit more motivation. Not only that, but that would also allow us to have more conversations between the characters. For example, like, I don't know, maybe Ford blames his dad for what happened to his mother at the beginning of the film or something like that. We could have a conversation about that would give more characterization to our main characters. And it would also bring in a human conflict into the story with both Serizawa and Joe being sort of polar opposites in what they believe they should do with the monsters. This film stands alone and always was made to stand alone on its own, because the likelihood of a sequel was pretty low at the time. But with hindsight, knowing that King of the Monsters ended up being a thing, they could have utilized the character of Joe again in King of the Monsters being the one designing the oxygen destroyer, which we'll get more into once we talk about King of the Monsters and how to change some of the stuff. But I think doing that with the characters would easily fix the issue that a lot of people have with the characters, and that already takes care of two of the main complaints of the movie, that being Bryan Cranston's character being underused and the characters being boring because you're actually giving the characters something to do. As for the other complaint, there's a really Godzilla's a really interesting case where the film sort of has a reason to not give you the action right away, and that's to build it up for the end. The problem is that there's so much build up to the action sequences that never happen that you end up feeling underwhelmed. And a solution would not be to take the the build up, because that would make it a lesser film at the end of the day. A solution would be to maybe give us a little bit more action. You don't have to give us the full fight, but at least give us a little bit more of the fight, and not just like straight cut like as soon as the monsters are about to clash. And of course, like, not interrupting with human characters. Or if you are putting human characters, just put them just reacting to the action, similarly to the airport scene, for example, with like everybody in the airport just seeing the foot drop down and everybody just going quiet. That's a perfect way to use humans in a giant monster film. Another good example of how to use humans would be going to like a film like, say, Gamera 3, the whole sequence where Gamera goes and and is painted as the bad guy destroying the city, and you see the humans running away and stuff like that. That's something the giant monster movies have always done really well, where it's showing humans just trying to run away from what's going on and destruction around them. And that could easily be a really good way to show the action, but not give everything that you have to offer action-wise right away. And it would not take away from the final act of the film. So yeah, I think for the most part, at least in this rewrite, well, sort of rewrite, I'm just kind of organizing the plot a little bit. Well, these things will probably get more complex as we go in through the movie, since this is the first film in the series. It's more of an introduction film, so it makes sense that I'm not going to make too many changes to it. But probably later on in the line, there's going to be a lot more changes. And the same will probably go for Kong Skull Island. But I think that basically narrows down the changes. I would keep Joe's character alive and have him be an opposition to Serizawa. Just kind of being like, hey, we should kill it. We should kill these monsters. While Serizawa's like, we should study these creatures. And also have more dialogue between Ford and Joe about their family dynamic before like their mother died or something like that, or at least like discussing like, oh hey, I blamed you, Dad, for like what happened, or I don't blame you, Dad, so you don't have to like do all this, or something of the sort, you know. And of course, expanding the action sequences with the monsters a little bit further, but not too much, to try to keep it in there. But yeah, I guess with that being said, that's all I got to say about Godzilla 2014. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out any links that I have on my channel. I have a Twitch account where I'm trying to reach 50 followers, so we could get into the affiliates, into the Twitch affiliates, and I could start monetizing that. I am starting to stream on Thursdays and Saturdays. Outside of that, please feel free to subscribe if you like this content. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, share it if you can. And thank you for watching.